this team's great. They've won the championship every year, but it's freezing cold. It's in Alaska. The sun's out 1 hour a day. You can go play for slightly less, competitive team down in Florida where it's sunny. You're going to be really happy.
I got really good at could I fit my life into a Honda Civic at one point?
The biggest culture shock was just not really being able to communicate with anyone. Our coach would come in and talk for about 10 minutes, and then the captain would translate for about 60 seconds.
And you do have a chance to billet, you should do it. I think it's something that it definitely helps you grow up a bit.
Welcome to Between Two Posts, an AHA production. I'm Sean Bucher. I am usually joined by my partner in crime, Stefano. He is not here today, but we have John Michael, who's one of our lead advisors and team leads. And then we're joined today by another advisor who is slowly ramping up with our team as his career kind of winds down as well, Sean Gilles. So I'm going to open the floor. Sean, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. As you said, I'm just getting started here with AHA. Really excited to take on this new journey as a agent and advisor and help future players, go down the same path that I'm still going down. So as you said, I'm still playing. I played growing up in Colorado, moved on to the North American Hockey League for 2 years, Lone Star Brahmas. I committed to play Division I at Robert Morris University. And then after that, I've kind of been jumping all over the map in the pro hockey route. During the COVID year, I ended up having to start in the SPHL, followed that with 1 year in the ECHL. And then I decided that it'd be best for me to make the jump over to Europe. And sounds like we'll be getting into that decision and what goes along with that later on. So I don't want to spoil too much about that yet, I guess.
No, that's the perfect tee up. So the big one I wanted to talk about today, this is a topic we're dealing a lot with families right now. So whether you're, a minor athlete, you're not a pro or up to the pro level, readiness for international play or leaving your home country to go play in another country. This is something that we deal with a ton. And then we have a really good broad lens here. I'm US based, but I have clients that go from, the US to Canada and Canadians that are coming to the US. GM here has actually had that experience firsthand, left Canada, played in the States. So he's had recent experience with that. And then Sean, obviously with your background, you've gone international as well. And so, I thought this was a good panel for us to kind of talk through things that parents should know. If you're an older player, things you need to be asking, things that your agent should be considering or your advisor, and just making sure that we're kind of covering our bases, because it's really easy to have a conversation with a team and then feel great and yep, I'm placed, or yep, they're going to sign me. This is awesome. And that's actually the easiest part. Once that happens, there's a whole slew of things that have to happen for that to be a successful placement or a report for you, right, Sean? What was your first experience? So after that East Coast year, how did you go about vetting European teams? Did you have an agent at that time who was working with you to vet those teams? Did you do that outreach yourself? And what kind of sprung on a lot of, how did you go about that? I guess let's just start there.
Yeah. So I think every player that grows up, your dream is to play in the NHL, right? And so same with me. And that was really the objective until I got to university and I started realizing holy cow, the best of the best for a reason, right? So the best players in college hockey are, not even really getting that opportunity. So just started thinking about what my path could be like. And I knew a lot of guys that had gone to play in Europe after some time in the States. So just trying to do my research and ask them why they made that decision, right? And it kind of started after I graduated, 2020, obviously COVID happened, right? So I was expecting to finish my senior year with an ECHL team. Most players from Robert Morris and, most Division I guys do that. But with that not happening, and then the following year, half of the ECHL didn't play because of, not being allowed to have people in the buildings, their businesses, right? So they're not able to make any money. They don't have TV deals. And, the only way they make money is those ticket sales. So hard to blame anyone there, but as a rookie without any pro resume, that left me in a bad spot because now there's half of a league of veteran players looking for homes. And so I was just kind of on the outside looking in, and I had to start in the SPHL, which is another really good league. But, just for myself, I kind of felt that I was above that level. So before committing to do that, it was January and I hadn't committed to play anywhere yet. I was looking into international options just because the ECHL wasn't attainable that year with everything going on. And it kind of opened my mind to it. I had a North American agent who told me he was going to transfer me to, his European partner, and that guy never got in touch. And I asked, hey, can you just send me his number? And he goes, oh, no, I'll let him know to call you. And so never got in touch with him there. So, you don't know what happened. And I just started asking teammates. I did decide to go to the SPHL that year. And I had a roommate who had played in England the year before. So I just asked him for his agent, and, I've been working with him ever since, and he works just in Europe. So now that I've made that decision, that's one thing I'll say is once you make that decision, it's more or less permanent in my mind, right? Like if you are in the ECHL and you go over to Europe, your odds of signing an American League deal are a lot lower, out of sight, out of mind. You have to be ready to make that jump and then try to climb that ladder, because playing over in Europe is a different grind and a different ladder than playing in North America. And it's definitely something you need to make sure you're ready to do, because it is kind of giving up on chasing that dream here in the States.
I don't want to say do you regret it, because I don't think you do. Anybody who gets to play professionally that you talk to, everybody's grateful for the opportunities they've been given. But knowing what you know now, and you just kind of alluded to it, like, you kind of shift your mindset. But how would you rank, we talk about this with clients. Yeah, the SP is the equivalent of like, this league in France or this league in Germany. How much parity exists, and like how much, for a player maybe coming from the US to Europe, what's the opportunity really if you can stand out? Like, can you have an accelerated path up? What's the expectation maybe for forwards? And is this something that, like, when you had these conversations early on, were you asking teams, like, hey, where do you have me placed? Like, at what pair am I? Like, did you get into the depth of that, or were you saying like, hey, I just want a chance to come over and play, and I want to show you what I can do, and I'll go from there? Yeah,
it's funny that you asked that, kind of going back to, do I regret it? And no, definitely not. I had some great experience there, right? And, I think I would have regretted it if I hadn't even given it a chance to maybe play in the American League. That's quite an accomplishment, and maybe something that was attainable if I had grinded it out in the ECHL for, 4 or 5 years. But going over to Europe was more of a lifestyle decision for me. So, the ECHL is 72 games. Most European leagues are around 50. You never play back-to-back nights. So it's usually Friday, Sunday, maybe a Tuesday. Whereas, ECHL, you can play 4 nights in a row in 4 different cities. So a little bit better on the body. You get the ability to go travel the world. So, when you do have some free time, other countries are drivable. So that's the cool thing about Europe, is travel is so easy and accessible over there. I felt I was a stage in my life where I don't have anything holding me back here in terms of, kids and stuff like that. But I do feel old enough to move on from that dream in North America and really just enjoy playing in Europe. So it was kind of a year by year decision. I wasn't a big point guy, and I'm sure, as everyone knows, points talk, right? So especially when there's language barriers, trying to get over to Europe, they're probably just going to look at your elite prospects. And from there, if you have a chance to meet that threshold, they'll start to watch video and vet you out, right? So I think I only had 12 points my season in the ECHL. I'm more of a defensive defenseman. So what happened was that agent actually found a team that was looking for 4 guys. And so 4 guys from my ECHL team got offered to go to the same team in Slovakia. And we were told that it was a very good league, a league that is known for boosting your career. So that's another part of the decision-making process. You can go to beautiful spots, beautiful countries, but it may not be as good for your resume. I'm not going to lie, Slovakia was not my favorite experience of the places I've been in Europe, but I went to try to boost my hockey career, ended up having a good season, and it kind of revitalized me as a player. So the bigger ice was great for me. I think I skate well. Being over there, I kind of learned more about the process, and something I really want to reiterate to the people listening. If you're interested in Europe, do a very thorough background check on your family history. So there's import rules. You can only have a specific amount of foreign players. And I just
league every year, it goes up, it goes down. In Germany, 2 could have 4 imports, but 3 has 6. Yeah, we have a lot of these discussions when we talk about getting guys over there, because I'll let you continue on this, but yeah, this is a really big one. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Yeah, it's massive. Think about it now. So I guess I'll go back into it. I thought that my family heritage was Polish, but one of my teammates, he had a very big help in his career path because he found out he was German. He found a team in the Del 2 that would pay for his German passport, and he had a great season there. And now he doesn't count as an import. So he's just competing against Germans to go to the first league instead of the imports who are NHL, top 10 picks can end up in the DEL. So it's really
played 5 years, whatever, you're like, oh, you still had 200 games, and they're just like, yeah, I'm over here, and they're making good money, just again, enjoying life, right?
Yeah, and so I did a really deep dive on myself, and we found out that my grandpa actually isn't Polish. When he immigrated, he was German, and it wasn't a good time to be a German in the rest of the world. So he lied on his paperwork to get into the States, said he was Polish. So I had to go through a huge legal process with the German government and the team helping me out to basically try to reverse that ruling with other paperwork and documents. But he immigrated back in 1899. So hopefully it's off their radar now. But it helps me out with my hockey career, funny enough. And like I said, I was taking it year by year, and now it'll be my 4th year in Europe. And if I can make it to the top league, I'll play until they won't sign me anymore, right?
Yeah. Ride it till the wheels come off, literally.
Yeah. Oh, and they're starting to fall off, You're getting old here.
It catches up to us. I think I've said this on this already, but we all end up in men's league at some point. Okay, contrasting that, GM, you left to play juniors, so you were not a professional athlete. You were a minor athlete. Did you leave? I'll let you fill this in, but you left before you turned 18, right?
No, I left the year after. So when I left, it was also the COVID year. So we didn't play here in Canada at all. So I played in the USPHL Premier, and 3/4 of my team was Canadian. And that was very similar with a lot of the teams across the South and the Southeast Division, because there wasn't a lot of hockey in the North, whether it was USA or Canada. And yeah, I mean, it was cool. I lived with 6 guys in a really big house down there and had a blast. Everybody was from Canada. The people I lived with were Canadian. So I honestly didn't really go through a huge culture shock, so to speak, moving from Canada down to South US, because I sort of had that, familiarity of a Canadian family at home that helped me learn the ropes of the Southern American culture and understanding hey, this is pretty different from back home, right? Yeah, we get it too. We went through this 20 years ago. So an awesome experience. I think that if the opportunity is right and you do have a chance to billet, you should do it. I think it's something that not a lot of kids, or even people get to say that they've done. And it definitely helps you grow up a bit, but it's an experience like no other. I mean, you're just there playing hockey and you're living with some of your best buddies. It was almost like college without the school. You're just playing hockey all the time, and your free time you're on the golf course or what have you. So it was a lot of fun. Obviously it's got to be the right move for your hockey career first, I think. I remember leaving there and thinking, where am I going to go now? And there were some opportunities that come up to play some sort of pro, I think Pro 4 or something in Spain. And, I knew it was career suicide, but I was considering it seriously, because at that point I kind of had to ask myself, all right, where's it going anyways? Maybe I just go enjoy a year and play hockey in Spain. And I don't think I ever even would have had that consideration if I didn't move out of my house and get the chance to do that before, my career ended.
So you brought up this kind of culture piece, and then you living in what we would call a hockey house, right, with 6 guys. Sean, when you go to Europe, because I know different European teams will set this up too. When you went over there, were you living in a hockey house? I know teams, we'll put guys in apartments, 2 or 3, 4 at a time, or we'll have what's that experience been like? Similar to that you would get in juniors sometimes, or a little different?
Yeah, my experience in Slovakia was tough. I guess kind of getting back, I never answered why I picked there. Like I said, I wasn't really a point guy, and we got an offer for basically a package deal. So a couple of guys that I already knew. And so I knew that culture shock was going to be pretty crazy, right? Not a lot of people speak English in that country. My first coach didn't, the owner didn't. A lot of the boys pretended they didn't until you got to know them later on. But yeah, so a 2-bedroom there is 1 bedroom, and then the kitchen living room area is the other room. So in our contract, a teammate of mine in the coast had a 2-bedroom, and it turned out that was 1 bedroom. And so the beds over in Europe typically are 2 twins pushed together to make a queen. So we unscrewed the frames, put one of the twins in the kitchen, and I actually slept in the kitchen for about 6 months until he quit the team, and then I got my own apartment. So that's one thing I will say, working with someone who knows the landscape is going to save you a lot of headaches. So, I'd like to say my agent kind of warned me, but it was more of I can place a couple guys at once. And there was a big shock there. But no, other than that, most organizations are really good. Like I played in Scotland the year after that, and we had 3 bedrooms and only 2 of us. So like if your parents came over to visit, they had somewhere to stay. So that's super nice, extra room to leave the laundry and stuff. Cause, other things, you won't have a dryer in most spots. So you're, hanging your clothes up old fashioned style. So a little culture stuff like that is kind of fun, kind of cool. Driving on the left side of the road in the UK, all that. Once you are more established, you can request more and more. And so now I actually have in my contracts that I get my own apartment. They fly over the girlfriend and our dog. And so the longer you build your resume, the more requests you get to make, for sure, which is nice.
Yeah, I've heard the spouse or like the partner piece is an interesting one too, because I've heard some teams will try to find jobs, like depending on like how ingrained in the local community they are. Like if you have a spouse, they're like, well, we'll find a job for your spouse as well. And depending on what their profession is, like I know another guy that we just signed with AHA, like he had been in Europe, played League Magnus. He's now in the Asian League. His partner, last year, I think his wife was a PT. So they actually brought her on as a team staff member to help as a physical therapist. So like some teams are very accommodating, again, depending on the level, their budget, they'll make that work. But I also know I've talked to a couple guys this year and we talked about, is this something that you could pull off? And very similar, like, oh, well, I've got a very serious girlfriend. Could they get her over here? And it's like, well, it depends on the team, what they're willing to maybe work into that. And then they, that's your housing, right? So that's one less house, maybe one less room or a place for a guy that they're trying to sign. And so some of these contracts, in my experience, like they don't fall through sometimes because of your talent necessarily, but like, what can the team accommodate? That's fine, right? Like we're adults, we have needs. We it's okay to ask for things. Like at some point, you say like, yeah, there's not much wiggle room, right? And like, this is what this team can offer because they're, in a division lower than the top division and like they have limited resources. That's just what this is. So it's really interesting to see like what accommodations are made, what aren't. For guys going international. But on the flip side, so like GM, like when you came down, like, so you played in the USP, you played during the COVID year. Let's just put it out in the open, right? Junior teams will make accommodations for certain players. They're just trying to make their books balance at the end of the year. And so some guys will pay a little bit more, some guys will pay a little bit less, depending on what they want. Did you find like any negotiation, or because it was COVID that year, it's like, hey, like this is the only home you have, we can't really budge on this because we're making this work already and it's tough?
You know what? There wasn't, I don't think like a whole lot of negotiation, but I was very fortunate that I like received a lot through like my Billet family, who were actually like the owners of the team. So they took really good care of us. I want to say that there was some wiggle room around the price just because of the exchange, it costing so much to be Canadian and a lot of people being like out of work at the time. They were trying to help us that way. But I think, for the most part, everybody was sort of in and around the same boat. I know that there were some guys that were a little bit on the higher end and usually the more experienced guys that they really wanted were at the lower end or, not quite much at all. For the most part, I think it was pretty standard in that regard. But it was like, it wasn't just an offer to go play hockey. It was sort of an offer to, hey, you want to go like live life, like you knew it before COVID happened, you can come do that here. And I think to a lot of us, that was almost the bigger appeal, that we would, get to have our lives back and not just be stuck inside the house and doing all that sort of stuff. So it was sort of a 2-for-1 deal in that regard where, yeah, you were going down there to play hockey, but you had a lot of free time as well. And we went down pretty early. That most of us showed up, at the beginning of August, which is pretty rare for junior. Like a lot of teams aren't even made yet. But basically, as soon as we signed, we all just kind of started heading down and got situated. And yeah, I got like a month to just train and try and get our legs back. And all the free time we had on weekends, we got to go enjoy all kinds of, different things that might not even have here or couldn't do it for the last few years. And yeah, like I said, my Billet family was super, super generous and they took really good care of us. So through that, we got, a lot for the, essentially the experience of junior hockey.
I think something too that a lot of hockey players that are younger don't really put into perspective is you're living somewhere for 9 months. Like that is a big chunk of your life, right? So putting into account, like you went there to play hockey, it was a great experience, but it gave you your life back. And as advisors, I think that that's something that all of us have experienced ourselves and seen countless times in, you know, our peers' journeys and our players' journeys. So what we do is help put things into perspective of like, yeah, you know, this team's great. They've won the championship every year, but it's freezing cold. It's in Alaska. The sun's out 1 hour a day. You can go play for slightly less, you know, competitive team down in Florida where it's sunny. You're going to be really happy. So that's something that I've definitely learned as I've gotten older is to, you know, value the off ice, the life away from that too, and really consider all of those factors when you're deciding on somewhere to play.
Yeah. What are you willing to give up? Which is a conversation like as guys get ready to make that to billet or to move, you know, that's something I bring up with all my younger players and even my older ones, right? And talk about, okay, you're going to go to Europe. Like what's important to you culturally? What do you want to have? So, you know, are you near a major city? Do you have access to transit? Or if you're in a smaller city, the team, you know, some of the teams will have cars, right, for guys to use. So that's a positive. At the juniors level, you know, you guys just said it, right? Basically, it's 9 months a year that you don't live at home. I was talking to my wife about this not too long ago, and she's like, it's kind of crazy. Like, if you think about it, like you never lived at home full time after the age of like 16. Which is really like, that's an experience. Like it's normal to us, right? But like if you ask most people, that's not normal. And so your normal, I think what you guys are alluding to, right? Your normal becomes like, well, I know that I'm just kind of, I don't want to say like a vagabond, right? Like that I'm just on the road, but like you pack light. Like I got really good at like, could I fit my life into a Honda Civic at one point? And like that, I had fun with it. I mean, made myself more of a suitcase than I needed to, quite honestly, but it also teaches you some skills on like, yeah, like what's important? What do I really need to survive? Right? Like what's going to make me happy? What do I value in a place? So, you know, I was going to ask some more, I want to get back to these, like some clerical questions, because I think there's really good information for families that they need to know. But what was the one place you've lived so far that you're like maybe a pleasant surprise? You're like, oh, that was actually like way better than I thought it was going to be. And like, what's the one thing maybe you missed or you loved, or like, was it a local pub? Was it like, oh, they have this awesome park there?
Yeah, just real quick, touching on what you were saying before, and I think GM alluded to it too, was like billeting somewhere or leaving your hometown is such a huge confidence boost for life. It's really hard to start. Like you lose all of your crutches, right? Like you don't have your parents, your family, all those things you're used to relying on. So I think it really helps you grow up, and it's an amazing opportunity. Like you guys have both said, I think it's something that really adds a lot of value to your life and you as a person as well. Something interesting overseas. I've been in 3 pretty unique spots. So like I said, Slovakia, the biggest culture shock was just not really being able to communicate with anyone. And, you know, our coach would come in and talk for about 10 minutes, and then the captain would translate for about 60 seconds. And we're all looking around. I know I didn't get all of that. Yeah, he had this massive, like, magnetic hockey rink that he would just move the pieces around on to, like, show us what to do. But other than that, just kind of really leaning into your buddies that are there, because it is a bit lonely when people don't speak English. Something pretty cool though is just the way they treat hockey out there. It's more like European soccer, where the fans are on their feet the whole time. They're chanting, they're blowing horns, they're waving flags that cover up 20 seats behind them, but you know they don't care because they just have so much pride for their cities. And the games that are the most fun, they call them derbies. So any game that's within about an hour and a half drive is considered a derby. And it doesn't matter if you're the 2 worst teams in the league, like it's going to be sold out. There's going to be people like shooting flares outside of the arena afterward. It's a pretty different way to enjoy sporting events and kind of being like the center stage of it, even though like it's not the best league, right? But every city is so proud of their team, and the relegation and promotion system is actually really cool too. So like cities feel so much pride for these teams because they watch them move up over years from the 4th league to the 3rd league to the 2nd league, you know, back down to the 3rd league. So I would just say kind of the pride that they have there was been a really pleasant surprise. I thought, you know, fans of sports teams in North America are great, right? Like we're crazy, but it may be a bit of a cultural thing too. Just like a lot of the people I've met over there, you kind of grow up in the same place you're born. Like you just stay close to family, and traveling's not as big of a thing. Like here in the States, it's very, very common to go anywhere in the country for college and then, relocate anywhere for a job. And so I guess it is a little bit harder to stay loyal to, the Colorado Avalanche if you're living in Pittsburgh. But over in Europe, like a lot of people stay pretty close to home their whole life. So I just think that like sense of pride for your community is a bit different still there.
GM, you now having the experience in the American South. I love how you phrased it as if you're like Ralph Waldo Emerson, like, my time in the American South. What's the one thing you miss? Because there is there's a culture shock even for a lot of Americans, right? Like, oh, I've been to the South. They're like, no, you went to like a very whitewashed, like you went to Disney World. That doesn't count. Like that's built for something. Like that's an illusion. Like what was maybe the thing you missed the most about your experience?
Oh, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, living in a house with a bunch of guys who are all kind of like-minded was amazing, and getting to experience all that with them. Like going to U.S. college football games was pretty special. Even the high school games were insane. I'd never seen that many people at a football stadium before. I was at a professional, so it was that was huge. I just think like I miss overall just like the Southern hospitality. It's a real thing. Like you can just walk into a store and strike up a conversation with a complete stranger, and they'll stand there and talk with you for 45 minutes about whatever the baseball team, how they're doing, like all that sort of stuff. You don't see that as much anymore in Southern Ontario. I think it's gotten a lot colder here over the last 10 or so years, and going down there it was pretty different. And even my parents were like not really expecting that. They came down and walked into a Walmart and they were like, everybody here is so nice. And yeah, that's definitely a big thing that I miss. It has honestly nothing to do with hockey, but just like like we were saying, that part outside of the rink, which honestly is a bigger part of it. It really makes you just, I don't know, it's very easy to be in a good mood when everybody else around you is in a good mood, and I definitely miss that. Miss the warm weather. I can't lie. I'm really over the cold winters. But a huge thing to think about with, going to the States in particular, or even some leagues in Canada, but especially like the USPHL, is like, depending on the division you're going to, be ready for some long bus rides. Like we were doing minimum 10 hours. Because the closest team was in Florida, like, North Georgia down to South Florida. Like it's a long bus ride, and it's tough when you're doing that after playing, 2 games back to back, and your body's sore and you got to share a seat with somebody and the bus smells like somebody died. Yeah, it can be difficult, because it's hot down there too, right? All year round, basically. So that bus, it always smells. There's no cold air to not doing much. No, the bus trips are tough, and if you're not winning, it's a long ride home for sure.
That's universal. So the good news is everybody gets that treatment depending on how well or not well you're doing. In your leagues, because I know some teams will highlight this from a European standpoint, but like I know some leagues, like we trained every game. I think like Mark Crawford, who I think he's still coaching in Switzerland in the Swiss Elite League. That's one of the big things. He's like, oh yeah, we don't do overnighters. We train to every game, which there it's a little different, right? I think the farthest train ride somebody has is like 6 hours. Was like, yeah, we trained to every game. Was that pretty consistent for you guys, or like were you having to do some treacherous bus rides like through the Alps or what?
It's definitely not like here. I know GM said the road trips in the States are tough. When we were playing the Null, I was in Texas, but they had that showcase in Minnesota. So like my first ever actual junior game, we took the bus like 20 hours straight overnight with 30 guys because nobody's gotten cut yet. And there's 12 bunks. So and those go to the vets. So there's 18 of us in the back and on the floors, like just trying to find any space. So yeah, those bus rides, they're tough, but like that's what bonds you with the boys. And like you said, like those are the things you end up kind of missing too, is just like the unexpected stuff. Europe's nice though. Like I said, the countries are smaller. And so I think our furthest trip is 7 hours in Germany. And, luckily you have a couple of those derby games, which are only an hour and a half. So kind of another perk of going over there is less travel. And because you never play back to back, you may get home at, 4 or 5 a.m., but you always get to sleep in your own bed, which is another thing that's nice. Like when you're younger, I think that you enjoy the time with the boys on the road trips a bit more. But, I'm 29 now. Like I said, I bring my girlfriend and our dog over. So it's nice for me to not have to sleep in a hotel and get to come home every night, even if it is, 6-7 hours. And those are long days because go to the rink, have a meeting, travel 6-7 hours. It's 2 hours till puck drop. You play the game, 6-7 hours home. It's, 22-hour day, but you're playing hockey and, it's a pretty great lifestyle, whether it's, junior, college, pro, it doesn't matter. You're doing something that everyone loves. We all have that same bond.
No matter where, right? If you love the people you're around and the team, like that's half the fun of this. I have one more, maybe it's not a question, one more cautionary thing I think is really important for players looking to get placed internationally. I'll start on the minor side, but like it's really important that your agent and the team work well together to make sure that you have any visa that you have to have. Any player come to like USA Hockey, right? There's a certain visa you have to have. Basically, it's a student visa. That's really important. We get a lot of families that and sometimes teams, honestly, that kind of skip over that. And then if you're not in school, right, temporary residence in the US, that one's kind of tough. So making sure that you're just applying for the right visas. And then like on the European side, right, like depending on what country you're coming from and what country you're going to, like some countries it's a little bit easier, right? So Sean, you referenced, playing in England. Players from Canada can go to England pretty easily because they have the like the crown effect or whatever they call it, right? Like you guys all still, consider each other, like sister countries. But a US player trying to go, like you're going to have different visa requirements. And so if you're going through this, like, yeah, getting signed is great. Make sure that you're on top of it. You get your appointments done. You got to go meet at the embassies. You got to do your interviews. You got to get your visas approved. Different teams are going to ask you to do it differently depending on maybe how they're trying to protect some of your, your incentives. Some guys go over there and some teams are, and Sean, you can speak to this probably better than anyone, right? Like you're technically, you're employed by the team, but you're an athlete in different countries can receive a different status than somebody who's going over there to work as like a tech worker or, a temporary employee for a company. It's very different. So like knowing what you have to do. And again, a lot of teams are very helpful, but making sure you triple check those things before you go.
You filtering out teams, the teams that kind of have that stuff down and dialed in, it's a pretty good indicator of how your entire experience there is going to be, right? Like the established organizations that, have their crap together, have everything sorted, billets, all that, they're going to be very helpful in telling you exactly what you need to do. And, there's some teams that, that's not as high on their radar. And that kind of gives you an indicator that it may be a bit bumpier ride with everything, not just the visa stuff. But obviously it's on you to dot all your I's, cross all your T's and make sure that you're handling everything. But hopefully, your agent and your team are giving you some pretty good guidance on what needs to be done so that it all goes smoothly. But in my experience, usually the teams have done a pretty good job of helping out. And obviously the more time you have, the better. Like I know when I went to Scotland, I was actually holding out and signing like late. So I went in November mid-season and it was kind of like I printed off a Word document that said I was like a sportsman and I had access to the country, which felt a little sketchy, but I got in. And I know my best friend is signed in that same league and he signed 3 months in advance. So he just goes and has all of his biometrics appointments and all that here in the States. They ship it there and he has his visa before he even leaves. So just like I said, teams that have that stuff down, pretty good indicator moving forward too.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for your time today. Hopefully this sparks a few people to consider like getting outside of their comfort zones and pursuing opportunities that could take them to places unknown. And I think we would all agree, whether or not like you win or lose in those situations, the memories and like the lessons are far worth it. They're valuable well beyond your years as a hockey player. So thank you both for your time. And hopefully, if people have questions for our team on how to do this, is this something you should consider? Leave a comment, reach out to us. We'll share methods of contact. But
yeah, hey, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Absolutely, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Always a pleasure.